Recently, my 30-year-old son Kevin called me and asked me if I had a drill and a circular saw that he could borrow. Well, apparently he was reading plans online to see about making some patio furniture. So, first of all, I'm impressed that Kevin even knows what a circular saw and a drill are. Um, I have, he has learned no construction skills from me, so I assume he must be reading them from the project planning list. I came from a family where my father was a really expert craftsman, and he made a lot of great things for our family. And I enjoyed receiving the desks and bookshelves and basketball backboards that he made for us. But building things was never my strong point. If my dad was like Bob the Builder, I was more like Wreck-It Ralph. And I just could not get the hang of a lot of these things. My dad had that carpenter's creed in mind where he would, measure twice, cut once carefully with surgical precision. I would measure once hurriedly, cut 3 or 4 times till it was about right, and with the precision of a hand grenade, and then try to force fit everything together. And it just didn't work out well for me. But my father passed away about 20 years ago, and I did inherit some tools from him. So when my son called and asked about those, I said, yeah, I've got those tools, although I'm not exactly sure what to do with them. But if you'd like to come over and borrow them, not wanting to squash any initiative he had, I'd be happy to lend them to you, or you could even come over and work with them in our garage. So, I tried a number of times to be able to build things, but my only thing I ever got out of it were bruises and cuts and little outbursts of temper and frustration, and then counseling sessions from my wife. So I told him, come on over, and he and his girlfriend Megan came over a couple hours later after stopping at the hardware store and picking up some supplies. I took them out to the garage and got them set up, and I stayed to assist if they needed anything. And they started to work, and the first thing they noticed was the lumber. They had some of the wrong sized lumber that they picked up. And then they continued to try to use the stuff that was good, and they found they had the wrong kind of screws, and they were stripping as they were trying to penetrate the wood. And about that time, his girlfriend decided she'd just leave this work to the men, and she bailed out and went and did something with my wife in the house. And even our dog had been out there laying with us, and the dog followed her in the house too. I think the dog even sensed that this was going south and it might not be fun here in a few minutes. So anyway, my son decided that with the wrong size lumber, he couldn't build this chair and small patio table that he wanted to do, but he wanted to persevere through and still try to get that table done. So he doubled down with the screws he had and the right side lumber and tried to really drive these screws into the wood. And then he discovered that the plans that he was using from online didn't make sense. So I thought, uh-oh, this is it. This is where, for me, the frustration just becomes like a volcano and erupts. And I brace myself for the worst. But surprisingly, Kevin just looks at it relatively calmly and decides that, well, he needs to focus some more, and he's really dedicated to this project. And he figures out that, if the plans don't work, I'll just fix the plans. So he starts to recalculate some of the dimensions and continues building, and then puts a trim piece on to hide the changes. And before you know it, the table's done, and it looks really good. So a few minutes later, my wife and the girlfriend come back out to the garage to look, and they're impressed. And they think, they're complimenting him, and he's being fueled with confidence by these compliments. And I'm thinking, is this my son? I might need a DNA test. But the next day he comes back and he's got the right lumber and he's got the correct screws. And he goes back to work on the project again. And pretty smoothly, gets the chair done. And I'm just looking at this and thinking like, he's got the knack for this. You know, and as I watch Kevin, I think, man, Kevin building this chair and me handing him the occasional tool and screw just reminds me of my dad again. My dad was that expert craftsman, but I thought that skill set ended with him in our family. My son, all grown up, makes me think of my dad all over again. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, maybe I'll try woodworking as a hobby again. Looking at that table and chair and seeing this kind of quality time I had with my son, I think, isn't it funny how projects change in your mind once you're all grown up?